I pushed open the front door, the soft creak of the hinges echoing through the dimly lit hallway. The house smelled different, perfume, wine, something unfamiliar. My gut twisted before I even saw them. There she stood, my wife of 10 years, dressed in that red silk dress I bought her last Christmas, the one she swore was too special to wear just anywhere. Beside her, lounging comfortably on my couch, was a woman I had never seen before. She was smirking, legs crossed, sipping from my favorite whiskey glass. "We need to talk," my wife said, her voice dripping with something between guilt and excitement. I should have known. The late nights. The sudden gym obsession. The way she'd come home smelling like a different brand of soap. But nothing could have prepared me for what she said next. "I spent the weekend with her," she continued, nodding toward her guest. "I think I love her." Silence. My heart pounded so hard I could hear it in my ears. My fingers curled into fists at my sides, nails digging into my palms. Love? She thinks she loves her? My gaze flicked to the woman on the couch, her affair partner. She looked at me the way you'd look at a stray dog on the street. Amused. Pitying. Like she'd already won. Something inside me snapped. Not anger. Not heartbreak. Something colder. Sharper. I took a slow breath, steadying myself as my wife shifted uncomfortably. Maybe she expected me to yell, to cry, to beg. Maybe she thought I'd be some tragic, broken man crumbling at her feet. Instead, I smiled. "Wow," I said, my voice eerily calm. "That's really something." She blinked, thrown off by my reaction. I stepped forward, watching her grip the edge of the kitchen counter as if she needed support. "Well," I continued, pouring myself a drink with deliberate slowness, "I hope you had a great time." I took a sip, let the whiskey burn down my throat. Then, without another word, I walked past them, heading for the bedroom. Because while they thought they had the upper hand, they had no idea what I already knew. And they had no idea what was coming next. If you had asked me a year ago, I would have told you my marriage was solid. Not perfect, nothing ever is, but strong. We had history, inside jokes, lazy Sunday mornings wrapped in each other's arms. We built a life together, brick by brick, through struggles and triumphs. I loved her. God, I loved her. She was my best friend, my partner, the woman I planned to grow old with. I thought she felt the same. She used to look at me like I was her world. At least, that's what I let myself believe. Maybe the cracks had been there all along, small and silent, creeping through the foundation of our relationship like ivy. The missed calls, the distant smiles, the sudden, inexplicable obsession with her phone. I chalked it up to stress. Work had been hectic for both of us, and I didn't want to be that husband, the one who smothered, who doubted, who saw shadows where there were none. But then came the nights she didn't come home on time. The trips to the gym that left her hair perfectly styled and her lipstick untouched. The way she would turn her phone screen away from me, laughing nervously when I asked who she was texting. Still, I ignored it, because love makes you blind. Then one night, the illusion shattered. It was late, and she still hadn't come home. I called. No answer. I texted. Nothing. My stomach churned, an ugly feeling growing inside me, but I told myself she was fine. Maybe she was out with friends. Maybe she just forgot to check her phone. Then I checked our shared bank account. A hotel charge. Downtown. 2 nights in a row. My fingers tightened around my phone as my pulse roared in my ears. Every excuse I had made for her crumbled in an instant. I didn't sleep that night. I just sat in the dark, staring at the ceiling, my mind racing through every conversation, every moment that suddenly felt like a lie. The next morning, I didn't say a word as she walked through the door, hair slightly tousled, wearing the same clothes as the day before. She froze when she saw me. "You're up early," she said, forcing a smile. I held up my phone, the hotel charge glaring from the screen. Her face paled. For a long moment, we just stood there, the air between us thick with everything left unspoken. Then she sighed, as if this was some minor inconvenience. "We need to talk." I swallowed the lump in my throat. "Yeah, we do." She sat down on the couch, rubbing her temples like she was the one suffering. "I didn't mean for you to find out like this." I let out a hollow laugh. "That's what you're worried about." She hesitated, then met my gaze. "I met someone." The words cut deeper than I expected, like a knife slipping between my ribs. "She makes me feel alive," she continued, as if that justified everything. "I love you, but not enough," I finished for her. Silence. I wanted to yell, to throw something, to make her feel even a fraction of the pain burning in my chest. But all I could do was stare at her, my mind flipping through every moment we had ever shared, trying to pinpoint the exact second it all fell apart. She reached for my hand, but I pulled away. "I never wanted to hurt you," she whispered. But she had. And worse, she didn't even seem sorry. That was the moment the heartbreak turned to something else. Something colder. Because if she thought I was just going to roll over and let her walk away unscathed, she was dead wrong. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't cry either. Instead, I sat in the dark, gripping my whiskey glass, staring at the wall as my mind raced through 1,000 thoughts. Heartbreak had already done its damage, but something else had taken its place. Something sharper. Colder. Revenge. I had spent 10 years building a life with her. 10 years loving her, trusting her, believing in her. And in return, she had snuck off to a hotel with someone else, then had the audacity to sin my house and tell me she thinks she loves her? No, that wasn't how this was going to end. I needed proof. More than just a bank statement, more than just a gut feeling. I needed something undeniable. Something that would strip away every lie she had ever told and leave her standing there, exposed. So I started planning. Step 1, digging deeper. The first thing I did was check our shared laptop. She had been careful, always logging out of accounts, clearing her browser history, but people get lazy. And she was no exception. I went through the usual, emails, social media, nothing out of the ordinary. But then, I checked her Google account. Her location history. She hadn't just been at the hotel. There were late-night visits to the same apartment complex across town. A coffee shop near her office, always the same one, always at the same time. A restaurant we had never been to, but she had dined there multiple times in the last few months. I clenched my jaw, my fingers tightening around the mouse. She had built an entire routine around her affair. And I was just getting started. Step 2, surveillance. I ordered a few things online. Small cameras, a GPS tracker, and an audio recorder. Nothing too complicated, but enough to get what I needed. That night, while she was in the shower, I slid the GPS tracker under the bumper of her car. If she was still seeing her, I'd know exactly where they were meeting. The cameras were next. One hidden in the living room, another near the front door. If she was bringing her affair partner into my house, I wanted to know. Then came her phone. She never let it out of her sight, but when she fell asleep, I carefully took it off the nightstand. A few minutes and a clone backup later, I had access to everything, messages, emails, photos. And what I found made my blood boil. Step 3, the full truth. There were texts, hundreds of them. Flirty messages, heart emojis, long conversations about how he doesn't understand me, and I feel like a new person with you. Photos, too. Pictures of them together, holding hands, kissing. Pictures of my wife in our bed, sending selfies to her lover while I was at work. I exhaled slowly, forcing myself to stay calm. I wasn't just dealing with a cheater. I was dealing with someone who had been lying to my face while sleeping next to me every single night. And that was unforgivable. Step 4, the final setup. Knowing the truth wasn't enough, I needed leverage. So I reached out to a private investigator. Someone who could get official proof, photos, videos, records that couldn't be denied. It didn't take long. Within a few days, I had a folder full of evidence. My wife and her lover at the hotel, in restaurants, even sneaking kisses in the parking lot outside her work. Perfect. Now, it was time for the real fun to begin. She had no idea that every word she spoke, every excuse she made, every lie she told was being recorded. And when the time was right, I was going to make sure her entire world came crashing down. The moment had to be perfect. Not just any confrontation. Not some cliché screaming match or a petty revenge stunt. No, she had humiliated me, lied to my face, disrespected everything we built. I was going to return the favor. The setup. It started with an invitation. A carefully worded text I sent from her phone while she was in the shower. "Babe, I want to surprise you. Come over Friday night. Just us. Can't wait to see you. Red heart." Then I sent another, this time from my phone, to my wife. "We need to talk. I planned something special for us Friday night. No distractions. Just you and me." She replied instantly, excited. Probably thought I was finally getting over my insecurities. The trap was set. The gathering. Friday night arrived, and I played the perfect husband. Cooked dinner, set the table, poured wine. She walked in, smiling, kissed me on the cheek, like nothing was wrong. If only she knew. We sat down, and I let her talk, about her day, about work, about how nice it was to have an evening with just us. I almost laughed. Then the doorbell rang. her face twisted in confusion. Are we expecting someone? Oh, I said, pouring myself another drink. I am. She barely had time to react before the door opened and her walked in. The affair partner. And she wasn't alone. Behind her was my wife's boss, a few close friends, and, because Karma has a sense of humor, her parents. My wife shot up from her seat, panic flashing across her face. What the hell is going on? I leaned back in my chair, swirling the whiskey in my glass. Oh, I just thought everyone should be here for this special moment. Her lover looked just as confused, until I reached for my laptop and clicked play. The evidence. The TV lit up with every text, every photo, every sneaky little detail she thought she had hidden. Their messages, their hotel receipts, their plans for the future, everything. Gasps filled the room. Her mother clutched her pearls. Her boss? The expression on his face said he had no idea he was employing a woman who took 2-hour lunch breaks at a hotel. And my wife. She looked like she wanted the floor to swallow her whole. The affair partner turned to her. You told me he didn't matter, she hissed. That you were leaving him. My wife stammered, eyes darting from me to the screen to the crowd that had gathered to witness her downfall. I can explain. I cut her off with a smirk. Oh, I'm sure you can. But you might want to explain quickly because I've already sent this to HR at your company. I pointed at her boss, whose face had gone several shades of red. And, I added, to your father. Her dad, a proud old-school businessman, glared at her like she had just spit in his face. This isn't fair, she choked out. You set me up. I took a slow sip of my drink. Oh, sweetheart, I said, smiling. I just gave you exactly what you deserved. The fallout. Her lover stormed out. Her friends left in disgust. Her father refused to look at her. And her boss? He simply shook his head and muttered, We'll talk Monday. My wife turned to me, tears brimming in her eyes. Please, we can fix this. I stood up, walked to the door and held up a suitcase, the one I had packed with all of her things. Already did, I said, tossing her a crushed wedding ring. Enjoy your new life. As she stood there, broken and humiliated, I felt nothing but satisfaction. She thought she had played me. But in the end, I had played her better. She just stood there, staring at the suitcase like it was a foreign object, like she couldn't believe what was happening. Her hands trembled, her face pale, her perfectly constructed world crumbling right in front of her. The confident, smirking woman who had strutted into our home days ago, announcing her affair like she was some enlightened being, was gone. Now, she just looked lost. Please, she whispered, her voice barely above a breath. We can talk about this. I almost laughed. We are talking, I said, leaning against the doorframe. You just don't like what you're hearing. Tears welled in her eyes, and for a split second, I saw the woman I once loved. The woman I had shared a decade of my life with. The woman who had promised me forever. But that woman was a lie. She stepped closer, reaching for my hand, but I pulled away before she could touch me. I made a mistake, she choked out. I didn't mean for it to go this far. I was confused. You were selfish, I cut in, my voice cold. You weren't confused. You chose this. She flinched. And she should have. I gave you everything, I continued, stepping forward, watching her shrink under my gaze. And you threw it away for what? A cheap thrill? A fling with someone who walked out the second things got messy. She wiped at her tears, shaking her head. I didn't think you'd ever find out. Wrong answer. I let out a sharp, bitter laugh. Wow. Not, I'm sorry for hurting you. Not, I regret it. Just that you didn't think you'd get caught. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. That's when I knew. She wasn't sorry. She was just sorry that she lost. Her affair partner had abandoned her. Her father had walked out in disgust. Her job? That was still up in the air. But one thing was certain. Her perfect little world was gone. And I wasn't about to save her. Please, she tried again, voice desperate now. I still love you. I stared at her, taking in every detail, her shaking hands, the way her lip quivered, the sheer panic in her eyes. Then I shook my head. No, I said simply. You don't. She broke then. Full-body sobs. Pleading. Saying all the things she should have said before she betrayed me. I let her cry. Let her feel exactly what she had put me through. Then I picked up the suitcase and set it outside. I think we're done here, I said, stepping back inside. She looked at me one last time, eyes filled with regret. But regret doesn't undo betrayal. And as I closed the door in her face, I felt nothing but peace. She thought she had broken me, but in the end, she had set me free. The silence after the door shut was deafening. For the first time in weeks, maybe months, the house felt still. No forced smiles, no hidden tension, no lies lurking beneath the surface. Just quiet. I exhaled, rolling my shoulders, letting the weight of everything slowly lift off me. She was gone, and I wasn't broken. Reflection on betrayal. It's funny how betrayal doesn't happen all at once. It's not a single earth-shattering moment, but slow unraveling, a thread pulled too many times until the whole thing falls apart. Looking back, I realized the signs were always there. The missing pieces, the late nights, the distant looks. I just refused to see them. Because when you love someone, you convince yourself that the person in front of you is the same one you fell for. But she wasn't. She had changed. Or maybe she had always been this way, and I was just too blind, too trusting to notice. That's the thing about betrayal. It's not just about losing someone. It's about realizing they were never truly yours to begin with. And that's the part that cuts the deepest. But the pain didn't control me anymore. I had given her my best years, my love, my loyalty, and she had thrown it away like it meant nothing. That used to hurt. Now it felt like freedom. A fresh start. I walked through the house, slowly, taking it all in. The couch where we used to cuddle on lazy Sundays? Mine now. The bed she defiled with her affair? That was getting burned. Every framed picture, every little keepsake that tied me to her, I packed it all up. Gone. I poured myself another drink and stepped out onto the balcony, feeling the cool night air against my skin. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't waiting for the other shoe to drop. No more doubts. No more paranoia. No more wondering if the woman beside me was lying through her teeth. I was done. And the best part? I wasn't bitter. Bitter men let betrayal define them. They let it eat away at them, turn them into hollow versions of themselves. That wasn't me. I was just better. I was free. What's next? I didn't know exactly what came next. Maybe I'd move to a new city. Maybe I'd travel. Maybe I'd meet someone who actually knew the meaning of loyalty. Or maybe I'd just enjoy being alone for a while. Because for the first time in a decade, I wasn't tied to someone who didn't deserve me. And that was the greatest revenge of all. As I took another sip of whiskey, I smirked to myself. She thought she had won. She thought she had broken me. But in the end, she only made me stronger.